So this is like one of my favorite types of huddles. Okay, so we actually have students sharing. All right, and so this is something that's not always comfortable, or actually I don't think it's ever really comfortable if you actually care with what you're sharing about. So we're going to start off with some really difficult questions, just to get real. All right, and so I think to get started, just Lucy, what do you want for Christmas?
I think I'm gonna ask for hangout tickets.
Hangout tickets?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't really ask for anything for Christmas.
That's terrible. I'm going for a pair of either Jordans or Kobe's Sneed. I might need your intake.
I kind of need some new speakers in my car, so.
New speakers in the car. All right, you can keep it. We'll just
Okay.
kind of work her with that. All right. So the next one is what's this cute little dog's name?
This is Brooksy.
Tell us about Brooksy.
Okay, well, about a year ago, we got Brooksy as a puppy, and she didn't have a vest yet, but I raised her for like 5 months, September to January, and she stayed with me like at all times except for school. And then she went away to training in Florida in a prison for about 9 months, and then she just came back, and we'll have her for about 4 months, so hopefully like January, February. But basically after this, she'll go back to training to be a seizure alert dog. So she'll go through all that type of training. Right now, she just has learned how to behave, kind of. So, yeah.
Cool. On the theme of gifts, all right, we talked about what we want for Christmas, and honestly, I feel like the best gifts of all are dogs. I have Tucker. Y'all have met Tucker. He doesn't do well laying down and being calm. But he loves unconditionally, just like Christ. And speaking of gifts, the ultimate gift and the best gift that we could ever receive is Christ. And I just wanted to share, I think part of our walk is kind of when Christ becomes a gift to us that we actually wanted. I think a lot of times, my mom got me a flameless candle a couple Christmases ago, and it was I always bring that up as the worst gift that I've ever received, because the only thing I like about candles is that they smell good, but it's really cool to have the flame and you can pass your finger through it and stuff like that. And so anyway, it's a guy thing, but y'all understand, right? You got me. All right. But anyway, as far as gifts go, just Christ is a gift to you is just my question for y'all. It's just when did he become something that you actually treasured? It's I think it's Matthew 3:23. It's for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Or if it's not there, it's in Matthew. Promise that. But just kind of when did he become a treasure or a gift for you?
Okay, well, I grew up in the church, so I'd always known about Jesus, known about the Bible, I'd always gone to Sunday school, that's just something that I'd grown up with. But I think that I really made my faith my own when probably middle school years. But I feel that's when I was mature enough and old enough to realize what it really meant and how in order for it to work I had to do something personally and make a commitment personally. And yeah, I think that's about it.
So I'm kind of like me as well. I kind of grew up in the church. I'd always gone to Sunday school, all that good stuff. But and I was going to church and all that. But up until 2 summers ago, I went on this mission trip, and we go to this. The first Sunday we get there, we go to this worship service there, and it really hit me that they're worshiping the same Jesus Christ in Ecuador that we're worshiping in the United States, and they barely have a microphone and a speaker system. But it's the same powerful Jesus, and that's when I realized it's time to wake up and do something with this, not just kind of go through the motions and say and walk and talk the talk, but actually start walking the walk.
I think it really hit me. I grew up in a Christian school and a church or whatever, and for a few years my family didn't really have that great of a church life. So up until about 3 years ago, my family started going back to church, and I think that really changed it for me, and I actually got saved this summer.
Like them, I've kind of grown up in the church, but and I've always gone to camp over the summer, and so during that time I'm always away from home, usually like away from my parents and kind of by myself and figuring things out by myself. And so that has been a really big component of growing in my spiritual life. And then just like them, like growing up in the church, but then there comes a time when you have to make it your own. You can't just ride off of your parents' Christianity, or even if your parents aren't Christians, you can't just like go with the flow. Like to be a Christian, you kind of have to make a decision and like a choice that that's what you're gonna do. And so like me, like through middle school, I kind of like was aware of that, but I feel like it's really started to click more this year. So like, and like it really like helps me in my spiritual life when I'm journaling and making a conscious effort to read the Bible. So when I have things written down, I feel like that's when I'm most connected. And like this past summer, I first started to understand that like Christianity isn't just like the rules, it's like the relationship. So yeah.
Perfect. And just to kind of combine the next couple questions, I just want to hear what your struggle was most, like before you kind of started figuring out just how to walk the walk, and then also what your struggle is now that you are trying to walk the walk. Just kind of that comparison of what struggles were like.
So like I said, like kind of always like, I guess my Christianity being like a gradual thing, rather than some like testimony that's like super, you know, like I went from this extreme to this extreme. It wasn't more so like that, it was more gradual. And so like, I think before I really, even this past summer is the first time that I really brought it home from camp, if that makes sense. Like you kind of get on a spiritual high after camp, and this is the first time it's like I've been like making the effort to kind of continue that. And so I think my struggle before has been like kind of being scared of Christianity. Like I remember growing up and hearing pastors talk about fear of the Lord, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared of God, but that's not what that means. So I think I've always like asked a lot of questions and been really curious and thought a lot about things, but I guess I was always kind of afraid. Like I'm not good enough, I'm gonna mess up. You know, like seeing it as this distant, like unachievable thing. And I think my struggles now are even similar. Like I still more understand that my Christianity and my spiritual life is about a relationship with Christ, and that he actually wants to be friends with me and just talk to me. But it's still kind of that nagging voice, like, you aren't good enough, like you have to follow these rules and be perfect. But then you realize that's like just not the case at all. So
let's see. So, I mean, my struggle before was more of not being able to go to church probably as much as I should have or could have. And my family obviously like wasn't going to church as much, so Christ kind of wasn't as big of a part of my life as he should have been. And now I think that we've started going back to church. I think he's becoming a bigger part of my life, and now I think I'm struggling most with like trying to see that he's not like, it's not just about having a relationship with him in church, but also like talking to him and reading your Bible like every day outside, whether it's at church or not. It's like Lucy said, putting in that conscious effort to do that every day and have that relationship with him.
So for me, biggest struggle before like I really dove in was like I said, I was kind of walking or talking the talk, but I would kind of start walking the walk and then be like, all right, you know, take a break or whatever. And that's terrible, but that's what it was. And so I wasn't really like doing everything that I said I should be doing or that I know I should have been doing. But as I've kind of grown stronger, my biggest struggle is like I don't read the Bible enough. And like, so like these phone Bibles everybody has, they're great for like reference and stuff, but there's something about like the conscious act of like getting in bed or getting on a desk or whatever and actually like opening like a real book. I know all of our textbooks are on like iPads and stuff now, but like there's something about the actual Bible, like sitting there physically and like making the conscious effort and time to open that has really like opened me up, and it actually makes, I don't know what it is about it, it just makes the words mean more to me, and so that's been something that's been really good for me.
I think my biggest struggle before was probably, okay, well I grew up in like a household that's like super competitive, and if you know my older sister, she was like, oh my gosh, she's like super smart, super athletic, like pretty much good at anything she put her mind to. And growing up, like, I don't know, I feel like I was like almost like in her shadow, or like couldn't like compete as like at a high level, as like as high of a level as she could. And I think it just started, I was like kind of doubting myself a lot, and the fact that I couldn't like live up to that perfection like really like made competing hard for me, made me like hate it. And I think that once I found Christ, I realized that I didn't have to be like her. I didn't have to be as perfect as her. That's not what like Jesus called me to do. And that's like, he gave me different gifts and different talents, and I kind of ignored those, I think, when I like tried to be like her almost. So I think my biggest struggle before was kind of like being myself and realizing that Jesus has like already accomplished everything for me. Like, I don't have to be perfect in his eyes. He took my sin to the cross and died for it, and that's okay. It's okay for me to mess up, and it's okay for me to fail. And then I think my biggest struggle after Christ is honestly kind of like you guys. It's hard to it's like consistency almost. I think that it's easy to have Jesus when the times are hard, and it's easier to turn to him when you need him. And I think that my biggest struggle is realizing that even when things are going good, I still need him there, and I still need him beside me, and I still need to read my Bible every day. Like, I think that's for me.
Me too. But yes, this question, it kind of goes off of into a little bit more of athletics, but it's a little off script. But I just want you to share, those were the struggles, but I just kind of, how has like your faith been able to transition into your sport and even academics? Because I feel like academically you can be an athlete as well. It's like there's a lot of endurance involved in studying, and I pulled a few all-nighters and sleepless nights in college, but it's like, to be able to transition this faith into other areas, but also kind of a side note, just like, what has FCA done in order to help this walk that you've been a part of? And I'm going to ask, like, I think we might run out of time, but I want y'all to kind of just give somebody a hug that's like somebody you look up to before you leave here today. Because my hope is that as athletes, this is about having a platform to present the gospel, to share the love and hope of Christ. And it's nothing like knowing that someone's looking up to you. All right, so if there is somebody in here that you look up to just for Christmas, like talking about gift giving and all this stuff, a reciprocation of somebody's love for you is to love them. And that's why we love Christ. And just to give them a hug, even if they're not expecting it or they don't see you coming, that's even better. All right, but just sneak up on them and give them a quick squeeze and just let them know, like, they'll know that you look up to them, okay? So y'all do that for me? All right, even if they're not here today, like, go do that. All right, so anyway.
Okay, I think that in my like sports and academics, for me, obviously, like, I was so afraid to fail that I like stopped trying almost, like, at certain things. Like, I quit tennis, but like, because I don't know, it's a long story, but I quit tennis, and then pretty much just tried a bunch of different things, and like when I wasn't good at them, because I'd only done them for like a week, I would like quit. But like, I think that having Christ has made me realize that, like, obviously it's okay to fail, and it's okay to get up and try again, and you're gonna fail. You're gonna go through hard things, and you're gonna mess up countless times before you get it right. And I think that just the gospel has helped me realize that, and has helped me like be able to like get up and try again, I think.
So for me, like every single time I got out of the car when I was a kid to go to like whatever practice it was, my mom would be like, "Hey Trey, let your light shine." I was like, "Mom, I'm going to hit baseballs or whatever." I mean, there's not much light shining to be done. But anyway, so it was always like, what she was basically telling me was use your influence, whatever your influence is. And so one thing that God gave everybody in here, like, he didn't even give everybody sight or the ability to walk, but he gave every single person that's ever existed influence. And influence is like how you like make other people feel, and like what you make them like see in themselves or see like for the world. And so for me, it's basically like, as I've played sports here at MA or whatever sports as a kid, it's like use that influence of whatever you're doing to further Jesus' name. And so for FCA, it's been like the influence has been making, like, going to the middle school and trying to recruit kids, and we'd love to see y'all, but like use whatever platform you have as a member of FCA or a leadership team member of FCA or whatever. Use that influence to further the powerful name of Jesus.
And kind of going off of what Trey said, like what you said about like letting your light shine. Through sports, it's been kind of like easy for me to spread my influence, I guess. Leading prayers either before cross-country races or before soccer games, and that's something that's like, I guess, underrated, because like you're asking God to basically guide you throughout that game or that race or whatever it may be, and like asking for His strength and protection as you go through that, and and I think in school, having faith in Him and that He will give you what's best, whether it may be like really hard, like whatever class it may be, just putting in the work and putting in the effort. I mean, that God's always got your back, so that's really a comfort to know.
So for me, I started playing volleyball when I was in like 5th grade, and so I was on volleyball teams for a while, and then I made it up to 10th grade, like in JV, and then I was playing tennis that whole time. Like, my mom played tennis, and she had always kind of been teaching me and encouraging me to play, but I never really liked it. I always hated it. When I was little, I quit because I didn't like picking up balls. But so then it came to a point where I could, like, I guess that entire time I never really felt like I was very good at very good at tennis or volleyball. I just kind of thought I was just mediocre, and like, what's the point if you're mediocre, I guess? And so I quit volleyball so I could dedicate a lot more time to tennis. And so I would say that those thoughts of self-doubt and like, you're not as good as this person, like you're not going to catch up, are still affecting me today. And I'm sure that a lot of y'all struggle with that too. So like, I was even playing tennis yesterday, and there were those like thoughts in the back of my mind while I was playing. It's like, hey, like, you weren't playing as long as these people, or you haven't put in the hours, like, you're never going to be as good as them. And I think those thoughts can be very dangerous. And for a while, I've just kind of been trying to learn where my faith comes into sports. And it feels like during those sports, I can either get really angry and mad and be like, this is only about me. But then when you realize that you're representing Christ, it kind of starts to change things. And so then you start to not like be all like aggressive, like when you're playing, and like just really mean to the person you're playing against, or like talk really bad to yourself like when you mess up, because you realize that you're representing Christ, and like you want to represent Him well, just like our school wants us to represent them well, and like that kind of stuff. And then my faith has also really affected, like, in academics. There's a verse that says, like, to do everything for Christ and not for man's approval. And so if you're constantly thinking, if your orientation, if your foundation is to further the kingdom of God and it's to represent Christ well, then we're supposed to give 100% in every single thing we do. That means school, that means doing the dishes, that means chores, that means driving safely. We're called to do everything greatly, and not meaning we can't mess up, but to do everything with all of our effort as if we're doing it for God, if that makes sense. And so I think that's affected the way that I've started to do sports and been doing school and things like that. And FCA has kind of helped me understand that my faith does affect sports, because I used to think it was just this thing that God probably didn't care about. So FCA has kind of helped me to realize that I do have, like they were saying, a platform and an influence, and that your faith can affect everything in your life.
Well, I really appreciate y'all sharing, and y'all give them a hand. It's not easy, but we'll pray it out and get y'all to class. Hug a neck, all right? So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, this time to share together. Just bless them in their finals and all their tests, getting good grades, and in regards to their preparation, of course. In your Son's name, amen.
Run, run, run.